Welcome to WYCD Wicked. That stands for What You Can Do. Hey, everybody. Good to see you. Let's pull it up there. The Anti-Corporatist. Hello. Pinkerbell. Elaine Sharp. Christy Z. Good to see you all. Wicked Foxy Dragon. Correctly calling me out on the need for an alarm clock. Also just, equipment managing skills. We're getting there. I'm still riding high after yesterday. The call-in show was a wonderful proof of concept. We'll actually have prompts for the next time around. But, man, thank you very much for joining me for that. It'll be a more regular thing now that we know it works. Neat. Boy, got a lot I'm feeling a little bit salty about. Let's maybe start with correcting this camera slightly. Because despite how it looks, I'm not feeling blue. As a matter of fact, I'm feeling pretty good. But there is important stuff that we probably ought to blow off some steam, be a little bit salty about. Which way is... Hey, there we go. Not bad, I'll take it. So here's the deal. Conservatives are really lost these days, man. I don't know if they were ever found, but boy, of late, it seems like the things they say they care about, they do everything in their power to make worse. That's what I want to start by talking about. We got a video from Cat Black opening it up. We have a recommendation that I think ties in well to it. Let's talk about it all. And then, of course, it's Salty Saturday. Got a whole slew of other things. Remember, the point of today is just to blow off some steam, recharge our batteries, and by God, enjoy ourselves. So let's enjoy it. Starting off with Cat Black here, she has an issue with her format, wherein when I listen to her videos, I feel like I got something to say on all of them, but they're like on every bit of it, but they're like 20 minutes long. And it's a little bit long generally for this show, but ain't too long for Salty Saturday. Here is Cat Black talking about conservative freakouts over books in schools.
A controversial children's book teaching graphic sex acts, complete with illustrations, making the rounds in school libraries and classrooms across the country, leaving parents and communities outraged.
This sexual education book includes some graphic illustrations.
I come to you today to discuss a book that I found in our school district. It's called It's Perfectly Normal.
I'm here today to talk about this book here. It's called It's Perfectly Normal for students 10.
And so on and so forth. I'm going to skip ahead a little bit, but you get the idea. You get what this is about. She shows in this video, in her own breakdown here, she shows that pastor specifically. Now that guy, in my opinion, even though I don't agree with him, he gave a great argument for the case he's making. I want to show that to you guys, so that you can hear what a persuasive argument sounds like. Because I feel like we're getting a little soft. Too much sugary foods. It's been too easy for us to tell when somebody is right or wrong in politics, because the guys that have been wrong have been like mustache-twirling villains. I think it's safe to say this guy is either misguided or he's just really good at what he does. But it sounds to me like he's misguided. I don't agree with him. What I mean to say. I don't agree with the conclusion he comes to, but you should listen to this and understand that this is what a solid argument sounds like, in my opinion.
I'll read some of this for you. It says, after a bit, a person's...
Real quick, I should clarify. He's at like a public meeting. He's at a public meeting, and he is there as a father, although he is a pastor. Okay, now you know.
Becomes moist and slippery, and the clitoris becomes hard. After a bit, a person's becomes erect, stiff, and larger. Sometimes a bit of clear fluid that may contain a few sperm comes out of the tip of the and makes
Pastor,
it wet.
can we, sir, I'm sorry.
Was it something I said? If you don't want to hear it in a school board meeting, why should children be able to check it out of the school system? We have perverts that are perverting our kids.
That's where he goes off course for me. I didn't agree with anything he said. But the thing that makes me wonder if he's not just misunderstanding, I guess, is that right there. What do you mean, perverts who are perverting your kids? If you just take a step back for a second, you read if you read a book that was in a kid's classroom and it described, let's say, the process of sexual arousal, like that. Let's pick a different gender. Let's say they're talking about the process of getting an erection. And you thought it was too titillating for the classroom. You might consider looking into why the class said they ought to have that book. You can talk to the teacher that was teaching with that book and say, why did you think this was appropriate? And get their answer. And no matter what their answer is, no matter what their reasoning is, I promise you it won't be, well, because I'm a prevert that wants to make all kids into preverts. No, and Cat Black will break it down in a moment. But the fact that he just declares that these are perverts, that to me sounds like somebody trying to get a crowd riled up. Not somebody trying to do something with a bunch of people who have cool heads, but he wants to get people to act out. And in the era of clicks and views and all that, that's a concern to me.
And you all sit back smug in your chairs, but you don't want me to read it. Why? Does it bother you? Yes or no? You can't answer that question. You want to know why? Because politically speaking, you can't say that it's wrong. And you don't want me to read the filth because it exposes the truth. How dare you tell me to stop?
No, I can answer that question. We don't read a lot of things that are very sensitive in public meetings like this. My question would be, why are a bunch of adults made so uncomfortable by the facts of what happens when a woman gets aroused? Boy, that really does say more about us than it does about those in the teaching profession, doesn't it? We can't handle reality. Here's other things that would be inappropriate to talk about. Hell, let's keep it with kids. Let's keep it all related to kids here. When King Leopold popped on down to Africa, in the Congo, I think they were calling it at the time, he would hack off the limbs of anybody that did not produce enough rubber for him. And this included children. And there's a heartbreaking picture of a father looking at the severed hand of a child, his child. Just heartbroken. That happened. That's got to be talked about at some point in school. And that picture has to be shown at some point in school so we can face the ugliness, colonization, and be real about what it is. What dehumanizing humans makes us do to each other. We should discuss that. We probably shouldn't show that picture at the local city council meeting, because it's all about what you signed up for. Did you sign up for a class that's going to teach you about life? Not lie to you about life, but teach you about life. Well, you're going to learn about life. And if you if you are just accepting that you can't handle those facts, that's actually okay. It really is. If it's not your business in society to deal with those facts, and you've said, I'm gonna lay floor tiles for a living. That's all I'm going to do. That's how I'll make myself of use. And I acknowledge this ugly stuff. I acknowledge that there is reality other than laying floor tiles to be dealt with. But I'm here at the city council meeting just making sure the schools are run right. And I did not sign up to see a severed hand. Similarly, I did not sign up to hear the details about what I presume with these folks I'm failing to do for my wife. A lot of Shapiro types there, Walsh types, you know.
Stop reading it. If you don't want to hear it, why should the children have to see it?
Pastor, your time is up. Thank you.
That makes two of us.
Now, I'll be completely honest. When I first saw the clip from...
Come on now, wait a minute. You know I got to give credit where it is due in all cases. That makes two of us. That was an ice-cold line. Your time is up, Pastor. Pastor says that makes two of us. Ooh. Lordy. Again, I don't agree with him politically, but credit where it's due. That was ice cold.
This angry father who is also a pastor, there was a part of me that really understood where he was coming from. I think I immediately thought, these things in this book do indeed seem like they might not be appropriate. I've made a lot of content about being sex positive, and a lot of that content has referenced my experience with sexual violence that I experienced as a minor. And especially when we talk about my experience, which was grooming, we talk about what sex education looks like for children, because quite frequently what happens in grooming is that a child is alienated from the adults in their life, and this person is able to, in so many ways, take advantage of the ignorance that they have around sex. And so sex education for kids is something that people are talking about when it comes to preventing situations like that happening in the future. But I guess there's a really big part of me that struggles with understanding exactly.
Okay, real quick, just want to sum up what she was saying. Why teach that stuff to kids? There it is. There's a lot of good reasons. But number one, how about this? So they don't get diddled. There's all these parents doing the classic right-wing thing because it's like sport hunting to them. They're not doing it because they need to eat. They're doing it as a hobby. They're doing the classic right-wing thing. They're saying we have to protect kids from diddlers, but they're enabling a society which has diddlers. They're making it easy to diddle by keeping the kids as ignorant about sex as possible. So why would you teach your kids the nitty and the gritty when it comes to sex? Well, first of all, it is good to teach them at an age where they're not particularly interested in it. There's an argument to be made that if you're teaching that to teenagers, they will see it as a guide to coming as close to getting in trouble as you can without getting in trouble. They'll be overconfident and they'll get in trouble, by which I mean they'll have some kids. Or whatever horrible thing. But you teach folks just what it is. Dispassionately, you teach them what it is. And that way, if some gross dude comes up to them and says, hey, let's do this thing, kid. The kid knows what it is and goes, what the... I'm going and I'm telling an adult right now what you just said. You're going to prison, buddy. Lot of priests would be behaving a hell of a lot more priestly if we were more frank about sexual education in the United States and around the world.
what sex education looks like for kids and whether or not it's appropriate. This book has been very controversial, and several people have attempted to ban the book from schools. And so I wanted to look through the book and see how I felt about it, see if there was something to the idea that this book, this sex education book for children, is inappropriate. All right, let's read the introduction, okay? So it starts out like this. Sometime between the ages of 8 or 9 and 15 or so, kids' bodies begin to change and grow into adult bodies. Most kids wonder about and have a lot of questions about what will be happening to them as their bodies change and grow during this time. It's perfectly normal for kids curious about and want to know about their changing and growing bodies. Most of the changes, but not all, that take place during this time make it possible for humans to make a baby and give birth to a baby. And making a baby has a lot to do with sex. Sex is about a lot of things: bodies, growing up, families, babies, love, caring, curiosity, feelings, respect, responsibility, biology, and health.
Can we appreciate the use of the bird and bee illustration here? First of all, for the adults, they're saying, hey, we're teaching you kids about the birds and the bees. You know, you're welcome, is what they ought to say. Who wants to have that talk? I'll tell you, if I can get away with never talking about the facts of sex with someone that doesn't already know, I'll tell you that'd be about the greatest gift a stranger could give to me, is writing such a book so I don't have to do it. But I do like, in particular, look at this, that they are using them to show a kid that is not yet going through this stuff and does not yet feel this way, and a kid a little bit bigger who is going through these things. That, in and of itself, communicating to the kids that it's normal for some of you to not quite be there yet, and to maybe never be there. And it's normal for others of you to be there, or approaching. That's useful. That's healthy. That's something I think, every generation up to and including mine would have appreciated.
There are times when sickness and danger can be part of sex too. Most kids wonder about and have lots of questions about sex. You may wonder why it's a good idea to learn some facts about bodies, about growing up, about sex, about sexual health, and about gender. It's important because these facts can help you stay healthy, take good care of yourself, and make good decisions about yourself as you are growing up and for the rest of your life. Besides, learning about these things can be fascinating and fun. So that gives you a good idea of what this book is supposed to be about. And it's got a couple of other chapters.
Now, I am going to jump ahead a little bit. Oh, this is the chapter people are most upset about. All right, I'm not going to jump ahead of that. Let's go to the absolute hardest to defend points and see if we ought to be defending them. But I do want to just say, think about the alternative here. Do you have an internet connection? Do you know a kid that is familiar with the internet? Okay. If they don't learn, and by the way, that line, it can be fun and fascinating. I don't know of a scholastic endeavor which didn't try to pitch itself as fun to learn. It's not. It'll be gross, and no matter how much of a devious creature that kid is, it's going to be gross and mildly horrifying. But in the age of the internet, if we have kids not learning what the basics of sex are, you're going to have a lot of kids who get introduced to sex, their version of finding an old crumpled magazine in the woods, the traditional American way of learning things. Their version is going to be some skinny German guy going, yeah, yeah, wearing a ski mask. let's have one of our goals to make the generation who's alive now and just recently been born, to make their 20s somewhat less awkward. Can we do that? Can we agree that that's a goal, so that we don't have that specific scenario happen? And it will if we don't teach sex ed.
And when I flipped through the page, I immediately opened up on, I think, the page where people are really upset about. So in the picture that I'm looking at right now, there is a depiction of a man and woman in bed, 2 women in bed, and 2 men in bed. And I know that for these people, this is the issue they have, that these people are included in the book and are being referenced. I want to say that might even be like the worst, the thing they're probably the most upset about. So I'm going to skip forward in this book and read this particular page that they're upset about. And it's called Making Love, Sexual Intercourse.
All right. She'll go uninterrupted for a while because it's Cat Black. She puts on a good presentation. But I do just want to clarify, there are some things for which we're not going to debate. Is it okay to be a homosexual? That's not up for debate. It is. It's fine. There's nothing wrong with being a homosexual. There's nothing right or wrong about it. It's like being tall or short or left-handed or right-handed. Pretty much it should be irrelevant, and its only relevance is what we choose for it to have. So should they depict homosexual relations in this book is not a question that needs to be answered. So the answer is, of course, yes, and we will listen to no arguments whatsoever about how we should pretend that homosexuals don't exist. If you're learning about sex, even if it's not the kind you have, guess what? You're getting an education. You don't want to, if you're going to have a gay friend at some point, because gay people exist, they're what, 10% of the population? People that are fully Kinsey scale on the side. That's fabulous. You're going to have some gay friends. And you don't put it on the gay friend to eventually answer the questions about the mechanics of sex. Just, you learn it now, and you're done with it.
Dictionary tells us one more thing about sex. It says sexual intercourse. Sex can mean sexual intercourse. Some people call sexual intercourse having sex. Most often, sexual intercourse happens when 2 people feel very sexy and very attracted to each other, and may also have very loving and romantic feelings about each other. These feelings often make them want to or decide to be very close to each other in a sexual way. People can have these feelings for people of different genders, or for people of the same gender, or for all of the genders. Love that inclusion. One kind of sexual intercourse happens when a person with a female body and a person with a male body are so close to each other that the penis goes inside the vagina and the vagina stretches in a way that fits around the penis. This kind of touching can make the whole body feel good, feel sexy. And when this kind of sexual intercourse happens, it's possible for a female body and a male body, once their reproductive organs have grown up, to make a baby. So they're...
Again, remember, every one of those words, accurate. And the correct response from the school district is, you're welcome. Because those are all things you no longer have to explain to your kids. You're welcome, parents. That's stuff they have to know that you don't have to say. Good.
Being very inclusive of various different types of people, but keeping the language as neutral as possible, female body, male body, right? And they are not explicitly centering heterosexual relationships. In fact, I think maybe some people might even be able to look at this page and see, oh, there's 2 gay couples, but only 1 straight couple. So what does that say? Most people don't have sexual intercourse only when they want to have a baby. Most often, people have sexual intercourse because it feels good. People have sexual intercourse well into old age. These are all things that I feel like if I knew this when I was a kid, it would fill in so many blanks. It would probably.
Now, I'll say this. If there was a serious criticism here, it's not in the words used. I would say the illustrations. If that pastor wanted to get me on his side, he would say, I don't want to see half a nip. We don't need that. Fair enough. But that wasn't really the arguments he was making. It was about the information. So, no dice.
Probably have made a lot of things clearer to me, honestly. When a couple has sexual intercourse and does not want to make a baby, there are healthy ways called birth control that can keep them from making a baby or from passing on an infection to one another. So obviously conservatives who hate birth control are going to hate the fact that's being discussed. And it's interesting. So far, this is just talking about what your options are and what can be, right? And what the nature of things is. None of it is saying you should do this and need to do this right now as a kid. It's more so saying, you're probably wondering what this sex thing is. Let me explain it to you in the most polite way. A polite way, but a way that where I'm not going to deny what's what, right? When a couple has sexual intercourse and does not want to make a baby, sometimes a couple does not plan ahead or decide whether or not to have sexual intercourse. Planning ahead is most often the effective way to keep a pregnancy from beginning. People also call sexual intercourse making love or lovemaking because it's a way of expressing love. But sexual intercourse is only one way of expressing love.
All right, so let me toss a scenario your way now that the butt cheeks are off the screen. Let's say that you got a 15-year-old daughter, and she has a boyfriend who's absolute scum. He's also 15, and he's feeling a lot of emotions, but pretending like he feels none. Your daughter's a heterosexual, so is her boyfriend, and he keeps talking a big game, and he's pressuring her into having sex, saying that he wants to express love. And your daughter is not ready for sex, but she also doesn't want to break this boy's heart. Do you see how something like this can lead to a better world? Even, let's say she expresses what she feels is her love for him in a way she feels comfortable doing. She burns his favorite songs onto a CD because it's 2001. Or she does whatever it is the damn kids do these days. And she either learns that what her boyfriend was asking for was actually not an expression of love, or he's satisfied that she does feel the way she says she feels about him, and vice versa. Doesn't that sound healthier than what we leave folks with now? Doesn't that seem like a good lesson for a young person to learn so they can remember it when they're a still young but slightly older person? Doesn't that feel like a tool you'd want to arm your daughter with? Instead of just saying all men are dogs. I mean, that's accurate, but instead of just saying that, you explain specifically what it is you're concerned about. Let's jump ahead slightly, because this is why I think, truly, a lot of these folks who are so against arming children with knowledge at all are that way. And it's because they got nefarious intentions.
sexual intercourse until you are old enough and responsible enough to make healthy decisions about sex. Says it right there. One of the things that's hard for me to get out of my mind is while we're having all these conversations about banning books, banning sex ed, making sure that kids aren't looking at certain things in their schools, there's also a conversation happening in tandem where many conservatives are trying to make it so that the age of consent is lowered. And in a lot of places, the reason why that is because there are certain religious marriages that happen when children are technically minors. And more often than not, the situation is a little girl getting married to an older man.
I've heard you talk about parents' rights to raise their kids how they want. In fact, I just double checked. You voted no on making it illegal for kids to be married to adults at the age of 12 if their parents consented to it. You said actually that should be the law because it's the parents' right and the kid's right to decide what's best for them to be raped by an adult. Okay?
Do you know any kids who have been
With
married
marriage.
at age 12?
That was the law.
do you know any
You voted
kids-
not to change it.
Do you know any kids who have been married at age 12?
I don't need to.
I do.
Let's just leave it there. Missouri State Senator Peter Meredith knows someone who was married when they were 12. That's his culture. Just thought we'd be crystal clear about that. Yeah, and it won't surprise me when I inevitably find out that that Missouri senator is also against kids learning anything about sex and having any sort of defenses against him. Oh, y'all, that's Cat Black. The whole video's great, as always. I recommend you check it out. The link is in the description. Let's see what the Wicked community has to say. Ooh, Pinkerbell. Kids growing up now are so much more aware of consent and boundaries. It's really good to see, honestly. Yeah, I agree. I think they're sharp, and I think despite so much structurally being against them, the free exchange of knowledge has helped quite a bit. My dogs are goth. Knowledge gives empowerment. Absolutely, it does. Ooh, looks like we got a little fire from the anti-corporatists. I gotta see it. Ha ha! Okay, the anti-corporatists. Or, you know, sometimes stretching isn't necessary. Sometimes it can actually shrink some. I almost made that joke, damn it. Oh, God. Wicked Foxy Dragon, it isn't like the book is presenting it in a sleazy way. No, it's not. It's not. And Wicked Foxy Dragon saying, but why, Jake? It's part of the human body. No, that's true. That's absolutely true. I feel that the human body is both shameful and should be celebrated. I feel both things at once. It doesn't make perfect sense. It's just the way it is. Hey, unfriendly atheist, good to see you. The anti-corporatist. I've seen the clip before. I do believe who he's talking to is about his grandparents or something. Yeah, I'm sure. And he says they're still married. Like, okay, great. The part I was interested in is somebody that got married at 12. Let's not pretend like that's okay. It's not okay. 12 is still child time. You're a child until you're 18 at least. Oh, God. That effing guy. He was talking about a couple of kids that got pregnant. Yeah, whatever the scenarios are. I'm sure that in his mind, he's found one that's specific enough that he thinks, oh, I can talk about this freely. But there's just no way. It's like talking about like that person who was a slave who ended up all right. Like, oh, okay. Well, you know what? The path to get there wasn't right. And boy, consent is really something we have to be firm about. Didn't think that was still a matter of debate, but Republicans would have you believe otherwise. Well, let me just, and maybe I'm wrong, but let me just show a clip that was recommended that I think illustrates the kind of world that conservatives want to build for women. I have a feeling, by the way, if there was boys and girls sex ed classes, the stuff boys were being told about would not be criticized at all. But that's a feeling, and that makes it worth exactly nothing. So let me not waste your time with it. Instead, let's have a look at the world that Republicans have already successfully built. This is what it looks like when we don't get enough seats in the House. This is what it looks like when we don't control enough of our state governments. When we cede participation in politics to ultra conservatives. This is what we get. The thing that we get when we cede state politics and off-year elections and school board stuff and what have you, when we cede all that to ultra conservatives, we wind up with a world that looks like the 50s in all the worst ways.
Nightmares becoming reality for so many. Disturbing real-life horror stories are surfacing in states with the most restrictive abortion bans. In a story first reported by Time magazine, this month, a girl only 13 years old gave birth after her mother said that her daughter was raped and impregnated by a stranger in Clarksdale, Mississippi last year. The girl could not get an abortion and is now a mom going into the 7th grade. The mother of the girl tried to find an abortion clinic, but the last provider in Mississippi closed last summer after the Supreme Court's decision in Dobbs versus Jackson Women's Health Clinic. That meant the closest abortion provider was in Chicago, Illinois, and that drive to Chicago would have been more than 9 hours from Clarksdale, Mississippi, and ultimately the mother decided it was too costly of a trip. Today, Mississippi, along with many of the states surrounding it, has a 6-week abortion ban with limited exceptions for rape or if the pregnancy is life-threatening. But these exceptions are rarely granted and poorly tracked. Joining me now, Greta Kemp-Martin, the litigation director for Disability Rights Mississippi and the Democratic candidate for Mississippi Attorney General. Greta, thanks for joining the show.
Now, wait a minute. Don't let that fly by too quickly. That right there is a candidate for Attorney General in Mississippi. If we've learned anything in recent years, it's that Republicans should not be trusted to enforce the law. They really cannot be trusted with that. The Republican Party, in my opinion, and I'll say it again and again, is a criminal organization. We cannot have them being the Attorney General. We cannot have them being the chief of police. We cannot have them responsible for enforcing the law because they have no ethics, they have no morals. They are a criminal organization. They only care about making their own lives better, and they do not mind doing so at the expense of the rest of us. In fact, they prefer it. So, I'm going to pay real close attention to this gal, right, Chong, and do what I can, and I hope you'll join me, to increase her odds of becoming Attorney General in the, let's call it, just the state of Mississippi.
So first, I just want to get your reaction to this incredibly heartbreaking story of a 13-year-old girl who was raped, forced to give birth, and now is going to go into 7th grade.
Well, first, thank you for having me, Katie. This is unfortunately a common story. What we are seeing in this post-Dobbs landscape that was created by my opponent is that we have restrictive policies across the state that do not allow women to get the care that they need. And even the exceptions that are in place are narrowly interpreted and in some cases are fearfully applied. And in this case in particular, it failed. So even though there is a rape exception in Mississippi, even if the victim filed a police report, it appears that there's just no clear process for granting these exceptions when someone needs abortion care.
Yeah, and Greta, to your point about these exceptions, in the beginning of this year, the New York Times reported that in your state of Mississippi, those two exceptions exist since that state's abortion ban went into effect. But the state is requiring that a rape be reported to law enforcement in order to qualify for a legal abortion. So you actually have to go to the police and be victimized again, in my opinion. But even if an exception is made, that person still must travel out of the state to even obtain the procedure that potentially could save her life. So what needs to be done, Greta, to ensure that there's equity in not only abortion access and care for everyone, including the most vulnerable residents living in your state?
Well, I think my hope is that our federal government would eventually codify Roe and this would not be a problem. But as we stand in this post-Dobbs world,
Let's pause it right there. Y'all know that the major plan of everything we're trying to do, the major thing is to win the House, Senate, and White House in 2024. Add this to it. Codifying Roe into federal law. There are an almost infinite number of shows we could do about how important that is. Winning big in 2024. House, Senate, White House. Yes, right now we're talking about the importance of winning state by state and not giving up those fights. Both are true. We wouldn't need 2024 as badly as we do. We'd had bigger victories earlier. It's just that simple. So if you ever wonder what I think the priority is in all of this, 2024 and everything leading up to it. We need progressives in the primaries, and then we need a blue tidal wave.
I believe there has to be.
We need a wave that would make Moses nervous.
Some broad interpretations of these exceptions. Even the exception that allows an abortion for the life of the mother, we have physicians who are fearful of even utilizing that exception to treat their patients because they're afraid they'll be penalized, they'll be criminalized, they'll have their license taken from them. So these exceptions do not work. So if you are going to place a 15-week abortion ban here in Mississippi, you have to be able to apply these exceptions in cases like we are seeing here in Clarksville, Mississippi, like we have seen across the country where the life of the mother has been at risk. We've had women being sent out to the parking lot and told, until your life is at risk, I cannot adequately treat you. So these exceptions have to be broadly interpreted. And honestly, we need more exceptions. You know, here in Mississippi, we do not have an incest exception. Our lawmakers have expressed that that will never happen in this state. So if you're going to have exceptions for adequate care, you have to have them broadly interpreted.
Yeah, Greta, that last abortion clinic in Mississippi, it closed after Dobbs came out last summer in 2022. But before Dobbs, patients could drive to a Memphis clinic that was only 90 minutes north or to another clinic in Jackson just 2.5 hours south. What are your Mississippi residents telling you as you're campaigning to be the next AG about this attack on their reproductive rights?
Because it's salty, I'm going to feel comfortable tossing this part in before she answers that. She's going to give her campaign pitch. Okay, cool. We'll hear it. What other laws does that apply to? Like, for example, let's potheads unite here for a minute. In the fantastic state of Michigan, pot's legal. And if you live in a state where it's illegal, it's fine to come here, buy some, and give yourself the giggles for an afternoon. Will other states start making laws saying it's illegal for you to have consumed marijuana in another state? To what degree, I ask, can a state determine what your business can be in another state? I don't like that we've just let this abortion thing go on general principle. And if you ever wonder why I lament the loss of actual conservative values in the Republican Party, this is why. It's not that I necessarily agree with conservatives most of the time. In fact, I think there is need for enough change that I consider myself quite left-leaning. However, I did used to appreciate that there were people that believed in small government as a principle. And I would expect conservatives to be very much against any state law that tries to tell you what you can do in another state. I think that's just, not only is it an evil thing in and of itself for this specific case, not only is this probably the most egregious example of what could happen, but just in principle, it's authoritarian in a way that I will not allow in my country. And the way I suggest that you join me in not allowing it is to refuse to participate. If this was the 1800s, I wouldn't. If I saw an exhausted-looking black fella go jogging by me, heading towards Canada, and I see some red-faced honky coming up behind him 5 minutes later, I'm going to point wherever he didn't go and say he went that way. Do the same for people receiving an abortion. Don't ask questions if you don't have to, and don't rat them out. And if you are working in an abortion clinic and somebody requests information from out of state from you, don't give it to them. That's civil disobedience, and I expect everybody who gives a damn about their fellow Americans to engage in it.
So, I do not believe that Mississippians' position on abortion is as clear cut as my opponent and her Republican friends would like to think. Right after Dobbs in June of 2022, we had a slight majority of Mississippians that actually disagreed with the decision to overturn Roe versus Wade, about 51%. And only about 18% of Mississippi voters want abortion to be illegal in all cases. And then as recently in June of this year, we have polling that says that individuals that voted in the Republican primary on August 8th, at about 45% supported repealing the trigger law that bans most abortions in this state. Plain and simple, Mississippians, especially Mississippi women, do not want the government interfering in their medical decisions. And I think time and time again, we are seeing that across the state, but our lawmakers and my opponent just continue to ignore the wishes of Mississippians.
Yeah, and Greta, Mississippi has the second highest maternal mortality rate in the United States, with 43 deaths per 100,000 live births. And black women in Mississippi are 4 times as likely to die from pregnancy-related complications.
Katie's using the fax machine, so I'm going to let her just lay down those the information here. But I do want to just focus on this for a second. There's a philosophical argument to be had about whether or not a fertilized cell is a life. And to say that there isn't is simply to say that you're right and you can't imagine being wrong, and so it must be impossible for you to be wrong. I am not sure, truly, how I feel about where the point lies, where something becomes alive. The important thing to understand is it's not my body on the line, even if I was capable of becoming pregnant. You know, if David Bowie were to be resurrected and we gave it the old college try, the fact is, you don't know until you are. And one thing I would like us to agree on is we cannot ask people to risk their lives. That's not something we can do. In the same way, I don't believe in the draft. If you think a war is just, then sign up for it. If you think a war is unjust, you shouldn't be made to sign up for it. Similarly, if you think that you ought to have a kid, then okay. But if you're thinking, I don't want to risk my life, I don't have the health care necessary, this is a dangerous thing, having a child. We, the people, cannot demand that other folks undertake that risk. In other words, bodily autonomy. We have the rights to complete control over our own bodies. And not even the kid. Even if you think it's truly, truly alive the second it is a fertilized cell, not even that cell has the right to your body if you don't want to loan it. And this is the consequence of what happens when we try to take the right to somebody's body away from them. Death happens.
As white women. So what does this say about Mississippi's priorities for reproductive health care as a whole?
Well, I believe it speaks volumes. Clearly, reproductive health care is not a priority for our lawmakers. Honestly, health care in general does not seem to be a priority for our lawmakers. We are one of the few states that have failed to expand Medicaid. We have maternal health care deserts across the state. So, of course, our women are dying because they can't receive the care they need in their communities. And time again, we have had Mississippians tell our lawmakers just loudly that we would like our health care improved. We would like Medicaid expansion to occur. And our lawmakers continue to ignore what Mississippians truly want and what they're begging for. We have Mississippians dying. This is a healthcare crisis, not just for our maternal health care, but all healthcare across the board. And the time is now to make a change.
Greta Kemp-Martin, thank you for joining us today
And Katie Fang, thank you for the excellent report, and thank you, Wicked Foxy Dragon, for the suggestion. It was a good one. That was a good one. Yeah, just remember, you got a Democrat that at least talks a pretty good game running in Mississippi, and do not help. If there are states that ask, if you work in an abortion clinic, if you work in medical yada yada, and a maternity, whatever, and there is a southern state that you know has banned abortion, asking for patient information that they don't really need, don't give it to them. Now, obviously, if you're a medical expert and you understand the ins and outs, and you know that they're not just hunting for somebody to persecute for no damn reason, okay, do your job, do no harm, etc., etc. But Let's get down to the nitty-gritty. If you know they are hunting pregnant women, as they do not participate. And if you're just a regular lump of coal like me, then you see somebody that needs help. If you have a family member that's coming up to get an abortion, offer them the couch. Don't ask the questions. Drive them to wherever they need to go. Don't make it harder for them. We're going to get through these times, and we're going to have to do this stuff less long if, in addition to this stuff, we can get people like that gal elected in Mississippi. Let's see what y'all have to say. Wireless mic. Oh, let me go up. Oh, it's a response. Michael Skiles. Oh, my God. There we go. Wireless mic. Mississippi is so backward that they still had segregated schools in some counties as recently as 2016. They are an embarrassment. That's a good way to put it. That is absolutely a good way to put it. I feel like it is an embarrassment. And I literally, when I hung out with the cats from True North, Eager Beaver, it gets under my skin a little bit because they'll ask me something about that, and I have to take ownership of the country and what my fellow countrymen have done, and I'm embarrassing. I'm sick of it. So I wholeheartedly agree with you. We got to get on that. Dawned on me. Are you aware, Jake, that the Tennessee AG got medical records without the patient's consent? No. I was not aware. To be continued. I'm going to see if there is somebody well, it's got to be a note, or I do not get to it in a timely manner. Tennessee AG. Patient records without consent. Okay, here's what we're going to do. I will see if there is somebody in the Department of Justice that we should be talking to about this. At the very least, we should try to make that person's life harder for what they have done, because that's greasy activity. Pinkerbell, legally speaking, it has to be birth before rights are granted. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me. Michael Skiles, but the cell has a soul. Look, my knowledge of this does not extend much farther than Dragon Ball Z Abridged. I'm just saying philosophically. I don't think we can ask somebody to risk their life for another person. I think it's good if you risk your life. I think there's a separate question of the whole idea of personal responsibility, but that's definitely separate from the legal responsibility. John Bailey, our man from San Fran. Good evening, Jake. Good evening, John. Good to see you. Oh, mercy me. Tinkerbell, I can't think of any abortion care worker that would willingly give cops patient information unless it was related to an assault. Yeah, they're solid, man. Absolutely. And I encourage them to continue being so, and hopefully will take the pressure off them. And that, by the way, extends out farther and farther and farther. If the fuzz are trying to go after an abortion care worker for failure to provide information in X or Y, yeah, don't help them then either. Anti-corporatist, she can get some of those schmucks tapeworms and not let them... All right, let me try it again. Anti-corporatist, she can get some of those schmucks tapeworms and not let them remove them for 9 months. Yeah, absolutely. Oh, dang, letter hack. Good to see you. The thing just refreshed as I was scrolling it down, but we got the letter hack here. All right. Mercy me. Well, that's pretty darn cool, y'all. All right. So as long as we're talking about shame, there is one more I want to jump at. Because we've been talking for a little bit about what America says it is versus what it actually ends up being. And there's a world of difference. We are nothing like what the impression of us is around the world, you know? Let's go into it. There was a part in a history book that I read once where an immigrant was talking about what they were hoping that America was going to be, and they said that in their home country, I think it was Italy, I don't remember, but in their home country they had heard that Americans just leave pennies on the street. And they were trying to do the calculations, like, oh, if I find 1 penny every block, I'd only have to walk 100 blocks, and I could have $1, an American dollar, and ooh, the things I could buy with it. And of course, they got here, and that was not the case. I would have thought we would have gotten a little more ambitious after hearing that. I do want to be the country they imagine we are. Has it changed in 100 years? Has it changed since the days of Ellis Island? Not according to this. An article, I saw it in Yahoo News, but it's from the National Reporter by Marquise Francis. Asylum seekers in New York City say America is nothing like they had imagined. It's chaos. For one 29-year-old Venezuelan woman who left her 2 children and partner behind in her home country to embark on a 6-month journey to New York City, America represented hope. There, she thought, she would find safety and the opportunity to make a living. Is that, by the way, not basically what we're pitching? When we pretend to have pride in America, and I say pretend because I have not seen people who rock these flags or make a big deal about patriotism, who I actually thought were sincere. But when they pretend, is that not the thing that they're talking about? Is that not what being an American is supposed to be? It's a relatively safe place where if you work hard, you can achieve anything. But 4 months after arriving in the U.S., she says it's nothing like she had imagined. It's too difficult to come to a place where you don't know the language. The woman, who agreed to speak anonymously to protect her safety, told Yahoo News. Oh, excuse me, this guy's a writer for the National Reporter. Oh, my God, what a fool I am. No wonder I couldn't link to the main story. He's the National Reporter for Yahoo News. Look, your old pal Jake's not terribly bright, but he means well. Speaking in Spanish, the woman had been standing along the granite wall of a bustling midtown Manhattan restaurant attached to the Roosevelt Hotel, which in recent months has been transformed into the city's migrant intake center. Like many Venezuelans who've come to the U.S. in recent years, the woman explained that Venezuela's corrupt and repressive government, again, corrupt and repressive government, huh? Didn't care for that. We wouldn't want to be like Venezuela, would we? Had left her with few options at home. She embarked on the dangerous journey to the U.S. by herself. That was a sarcastic jab at the right, for the record. Traveling through the perilous Darien Gap that connects Colombia and Panama, then multiple countries, including Nicaragua and Honduras, by foot and public transportation. She stopped for weeks at a time to work only long enough to make enough money for the next leg of her trip. Since arriving in New York, she struggled to make money and obtain basic necessities while navigating the city's shelter system. Eventually, she says, she hopes to bring her family to America, but she's unsure how she will make that happen. I just want a job, she said. It's very difficult to get a place when you have nothing. The woman is just one of an estimated 57,000 migrants currently seeking shelter in New York City. Well, let's add that in. The majority of them have been bussed in from Texas, a political move by Republican Texas Governor Greg Abbott to force the federal government to tighten border security. Others have made their way to New York on their own. Let's just talk about that. So Greg Abbott hears this story and stories like it. And what does he decide? He decides that instead of making America better, we should shut it down. Close the doors. Turn around the sign. Let people know, nope, can't come in here. It's closed. I don't know about you, but I hear that, and I hear we need to make America better. Woman can't speak English? Okay. We should make it easy to learn English. Free classes at the local community center. Learning to hablo inglés, because she says that's been an obstacle to her. She says it's hard to find a place when you don't already have a job. But she's bouncing around in shelters. How much of her day is she spending looking for where she's going to sleep that night? Do we want her to be productive or not? Forget where she's productive. Forget if it's in this country or that. Do we want this human being to live a productive life? Do we want this to be a place where human beings can earn? What about that woman? What about her character? Tells you she wouldn't make a good American. My idea of what an American is supposed to be is basically just what that woman is. She's got the brass balls to work her way to this area. She crossed dangerous terrain, and she worked, stopping for weeks at a time to do work for people that needed it, done apparently, and were willing to pay her so she could earn money to get here. That sounds like some Old West stuff right there. That sounds classic American. Hell yeah, gunslinger. Except she was modern. She's slinging the barista mug, you know? Hell yes. If we cannot take somebody with that kind of work ethic, she's a veteran of having kids, for God's sake. If we can't take somebody with that kind of energy, who is willing to travel that far, work that hard, and if we can't make something useful out of her, she wants to play for our team, we're saying we can't do anything with her? Really? That's our problem, not hers. It's our obligation to change the equation here, because her part of it, it's fine. If you're the sort of person that thinks, well, damn it, the USA is an English-speaking country, I don't want to hear that we can't take a person with that kind of work ethic for that alone. The answer is not to close the door to her. The answer is to make it easier for her to learn English. If I was able to learn English, she definitely can. Just give her a fair shot at it. Don't make her do that thing where she's got to watch U.S. soap operas and learn through trial and error. That's just not efficient. But most importantly, have a little bit of pride. If you're talking to a conservative, insist that they have a little bit of pride, because that woman is going to write home now, and she's going to tell her family America isn't what we thought it was. It's not such a great place, actually. And she's not going to say it's not such a great place for people like us, but oh, those glorious honkies. No. I'm going to tell the truth. It's a unnecessarily cold and cruel place. Let's make that not true. Let's change our part of the equation. And also, let's see what the wicked community has to say. My dogs are goth. We are new here on this land ourselves. Yeah. Yeah, that's it exactly. And I feel like if we're going to justify our continued presence here, we better, real quick, make it clear that race has got nothing to do with it. When I say we, I mean I don't just mean honkies. I mean literally all of us. At some point we're going to find out which one of the Native American tribes was the first, and then they'll be the only ones that can really say that they have the claim, if we keep up with our current way of deciding what makes an American. We have to just say it's an attitude as well as a location. And we should decide what that attitude is. I like hers. Scott Ward, then the American is over. Tinkerbell, I don't know how anything works. I'm just tapping buttons. I see you've studied the wicked way of running a show. The anti-corporatist, the Darien Gap is no joke. How anyone makes it through there is beyond me. Interesting. I'll look that up. John Bailey, tenacity. Hell yeah. Hell yeah. Scott Ward, read the scriptures. The whole earth heats up and dies. Oof. Yeah. Yeah. Very, very possible. Pinkerbell, thank you so much. Gifted one, what you can do, memberships. Oh, I love it. You know what? We're going to do more gifts. That's badass. Scott Ward, John the Baptist left in the womb of Elizabeth when Mary walked in carrying Jesus in her. I have not, I'll be honest with you, since the David Suchet fandom days, I haven't had a peek at the Bible. I'll have to get back to it. Speaking of, as long as we're here, couple of folks that talk about the Bible a lot, I'll recommend on this channel. Just let me drop them here. I have almost no opportunity to talk about them elsewhere. Apologia is fantastic. I don't know if I've ever actually gotten a chance to use them, but yeah, Apologia is the channel, as well as, if you're interested in Bible-related things, well, this is less Bible-related these days, but Telltale Fireside Chat. I think the main Telltale channel still talks about Bible stuff, but it's from like a, and I say this with love, mildly butthurt atheist perspective. But it's still useful information, and he talks about historic evidence and all that. Definitely worth checking out. And this is something I would very much like from y'all, if you have it. Do you guys know any Christian channels which discuss the Bible in a secular way? That's what I've been looking for of late. I want to understand, I want to hear arguments made by true believers, genuine true believers. But that deal with the world from a secular perspective, or deal with Bible topics like from okay, here's the historical evidence and here's what I believe and blah 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 blah. I want to understand that world better. So if you have suggestions, by all means, let me know. Mars Falcon. Panama is too danged narrow. Yes. Good Lord. Well, folks, you know I've been having a blast with you. I will say I got all wound up. I was so sure yesterday was going to crash that I'm about ready to crash myself. Also, in full disclosure, I'm gonna take a lot of time to do a bit here. Oh, wait a minute. It's not funny enough for all this time I'm taking. Oh, I just can't. Oh, well. Well, imagine I had the quickness and the forethought, either or, to have remembered to pull this Arrested Development clip. But I've been babysitting quite young children, and I have no more love to give. I'm going to turn in early. Y'all, thank you for joining me. This has been a lovely Salty Saturday. Had a blast with y'all this whole week. Enjoy the weekend. I'm going to go burn one down, and I will see y'all on Monday. Thanks for joining. Oh, this has been WYCD Wicked. That stands for what you can do. My name's Jake.